Ever imagine yourself working in healthcare, but, maybe not the whole doctor route? Like, what if you can mix patient care, a bit of admin stuff, maybe even some hands-on therapy work, all while helping people feel amazing? Well, that's where becoming a chiropractic assistant comes in. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
It's really interesting, actually, because it's right at that intersection of holistic health and those traditional medical practices. And we're seeing more and more people searching for those alternative ways to kind of manage their wellness.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
like we care about your whole body, but also let's get those bones in alignment. And lucky for us, RoleCatcher, they're this awesome career platform, gave us a ton of info, think, interview tips, salary insights, even the lowdown on standing out in the job market.
They've got great resources.
So good. But okay, before we go too far, paint me a picture. Our listener, they're a full-fledged chiropractic assistant. What's their day actually like?
Okay, so picture this. You walk into the clinic, right, and you're the welcoming face every patient sees. You're making sure those appointments are running on time, that the clinic's organized, that everything is smooth sailing.
You're like the conductor of the clinic orchestra.
Exactly. But here's the cool part. You're not just behind the scenes. You're also working directly with the chiropractor, taking patient histories, assisting with those adjustments we were talking about. You might even get trained in some basic therapies yourself.
Wow, so it's this mix of keeping the office humming along, A&D being a part of the patient experience. You need serious organization skills, people skills, A&D, a solid understanding of the body, all in one.
You got it. And RoleCatcher really emphasizes those points, especially strong communication and interpersonal skills, because you're interacting with people from all walks of life, some who might be in pain, anxious.
Right, you have to be that calming presence.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they also stress attention to detail because you're handling patient records, billing, that type of thing.
Which, let's be honest, if those records are anything like mine after a weekend of indulging, attention to detail is key. Speaking of, I've noticed tons of medical fields are going digital with those electronic health records. Is that something our aspiring chiropractic assistant needs to know?
Absolutely, yeah. Technology is everywhere in chiropractic offices now. RoleCatcher mentions that EHRs, online scheduling, they're becoming the norm. Being comfortable with computers and those systems is a must these days.
Good to know. Now, this might seem like a silly question, but when we talk about where a chiropractic assistant works, is it just busy chiropractic clinics? Or are there other places too?
Mostly you're looking at private practices or dedicated chiropractic clinics.
Mm.
But some larger healthcare places are incorporating chiropractic care more and more. So there's some variety, but one thing RoleCatcher emphasizes is no matter where you end up, be ready to be on your feet.
Right, makes sense. You're on the move, helping with adjustments, prepping things. It's physical. Speaking of, and let's be real, what's the salary looking like for someone starting their chiropractic assistant journey? Everyone wants to know.
Of course. So RoleCatcher's data suggests around $25,000 to $40,000 per year, but that's just a starting point. Location, experience, size of the practice, all that can change things.
Okay, so not a bad start at all, especially since there's room to grow. You don't have to be a chiropractic assistant forever.
Exactly. RoleCatcher talks about building your career path. You could specialize in a certain chiropractic technique, or maybe you find you love working with a specific type of patient athletes. Maybe. They even mentioned some people use this as a stepping stone to becoming chiropractors themselves.
Oh, wow, I didn't even think of that. So many options to explore. But before we get lost in the possibilities, what are the essential skills every chiropractic assistant needs to thrive? We've covered the basics, but what about the nitty-gritty knowledge?
Well, we've already talked about communication, attention to detail, but knowing medical terminology, that's huge.
Like you're fluent in wellness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, RoleCatcher emphasizes being discreet, maintaining that patient confidentiality. You're going to see sensitive medical records, personal info being trustworthy, respectful of those boundaries. That's non-negotiable.
Absolutely. It's all about building that trust. But working with the public, especially when they might be in pain or frustrated, there are bound to be some, shall we say, interesting interactions. How does a chiropractic assistant navigate those trickier situations?
RoleCatcher is big on composure and empathy. You're going to have patients having a tough day, so meeting them where they're at emotionally while still being professional, that's key.
Being that calming presence, even on a bad back spasm kind of day.
Precisely. Active listening, patience, a calm demeanor, your superpowers in those moments. Helps de-escalate things, creates a positive experience for everyone. Remember, you're not just treating a condition, you're caring for a person.
So well said. Now, let's switch gears to the elephant in the room, the job hunt. Finding that dream chiropractic assistant position in today's market, it's a lot. Luckily, RoleCatcher's got advice on how to stand out.
Oh yeah, they're all about beating those resume scanners, which can feel like black holes, honestly.
Yeah.
They really highlight understanding the specific skills employers want and then tailoring your resume to match.
So it's not just listing everything you've ever done, it's showing you're the perfect fit for that job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And get this, they have AI tools that look at job descriptions and suggest ways to improve your resume.
Right.
They're like, hey, this job wants someone good on the phones. Make sure you highlight that experience.
Whoa, AI to the rescue. A digital career coach. But even with a perfect resume, networking is still important, right? Especially in a field like this where relationships seem key.
Absolutely. RoleCatcher suggests building those connections, attending a chiropractic conference maybe,
Yeah.
connecting with people on LinkedIn, even reaching out for informational interviews.
I love the informational interview idea. Picking someone's brain, learning about their journey, maybe even getting your foot in the door. It's like a casual coffee date, but with career advice on the side. But beyond formal networking, are there personality traits that make a chiropractic assistant really shine?
One word, adaptability. No 2 days will be the same in this job. You could be juggling phone calls, prepping rooms, soothing a nervous patient, all in an hour. Thinking on your feet, staying calm under pressure, essential.
Like a chiropractic ninja ready for anything, even a crazy Monday morning. But on top of that, cultural sensitivity has got to be huge too, right?
100%. You're working with people from all walks of life, different backgrounds, beliefs, everything. Being mindful of those differences, treating everyone with respect and understanding, that's crucial for a welcoming environment.
It's about making everyone feel seen and heard. Okay, so we've talked about the good, but let's be real. Every job has its downsides. What are some of the not so glamorous parts of being a chiropractic assistant?
Well, we talked about being on your feet a lot, but RoleCatcher points out it can be emotionally demanding too. You're going to see patients in pain, frustrated with their progress, or even dealing with chronic conditions. That can be tough day in and day out.
So you need a strong back knee, a strong heart. Self-care is crucial in this field then, huh?
Definitely. Exercise, meditation, spending time with loved ones. You need healthy ways to de-stress so you can be there for your patients.
It's like the oxygen mask on a plane. Help yourself before helping others. Now, let's circle back to career advancement. RoleCatcher mentioned some interesting paths for those who want to level up. What are we talking about here?
Specialization. We mentioned all those different chiropractic techniques. You can actually get certified in specific ones, like the Gonstead technique, the Thompson, the activator method.
So you go from jack of all trades to master of one. That's so cool.
Right. Or maybe you realize you love management. You could oversee other assistants, manage a busy practices day to day.
So you go from adjusting spines to adjusting schedules. I like it.
Exactly. And for those entrepreneurial spirits, RoleCatcher even mentions some chiropractic assistants, especially those with a business mindset, might open their own practices one day.
No, that's impressive. Talk about taking your career to the next level. It's like you've soaked up all this knowledge, all this experience, and you're ready to create something amazing.
For sure. But before we go too far down that road, let's chat about the financial side of things. We know the average salary, but what bumps those numbers up?
Besides, more experience equals more money, of course.
Well, location's always a factor. Like most fields, bigger cities with a higher cost of living usually have higher salaries to match.
Makes sense. A chiropractic assistant in New York probably needs a slightly larger coffee budget than one in, say, rural Montana. What about within the profession itself, though? Does specializing in a specific technique or patient type change anything?
It definitely can. If you have a unique in-demand skill, you're bringing a lot to the table. If a chiropractor is specifically looking for someone who focuses on, say, athletes, and you've got that experience, that's valuable.
So it's all about finding that niche, becoming the expert, and advocating for your worth.
Exactly. Knowing your value, highlighting what you bring to the table, and not being afraid to negotiate those are important skills everywhere, not just in chiropractic care.
Solid life advice. Now,
Yeah.
before we get into the nitty-gritty of job interviews, let's acknowledge the intangible rewards here, because at the end of the day, it's not just about the money, right?
Absolutely not.
It's about making a real difference in people's lives, helping them get back to health and wellness. Those moments of connection, those victories, that's gotta be rewarding.
It really is. Imagine seeing the relief on a patient's face after an adjustment, watching them regain mobility. They thought they'd lost time. You're a part of that.
It's incredible. Okay, we've covered a lot, the daily grind, potential career paths. But before we wrap up part one of our chiropractic assistant deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this. How do you envision yourself in this world?
What speaks to you? What impact do you want to make? How does this job fit with your values?
It's about finding that sweet spot where your skills, your interests, your desire to make a difference, they all come together. And who knows, maybe this deep dive has sparked that curiosity, ignited that passion, and set you on the path towards a rewarding and impactful career as a chiropractic assistant. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're jumping right back into the world of chiropractic assistants. Before, we were talking about those heartwarming moments, seeing patients regain mobility, knowing you've helped them. But let's be real, not every situation is sunshine and rainbows. So let's look at some of those ethical considerations and, those curveballs life, or should I say patients can throw at you.
Oh, for sure. Because while chiropractic assistants aren't the ones making diagnoses, they are right there in the thick of it, seeing sensitive info, dealing with situations where knowing those ethical boundaries is so important.
Like being a healthcare confidant, which comes with its own level of responsibility, RoleCatcher seems pretty big on patient confidentiality. Is that what you're getting at?
Exactly. Maintaining that discretion, it's huge. Whether you're handling records, discussing cases with a chiropractor, even just chatting with colleagues in the break room, you got to be careful.
Right, respecting boundaries, making sure those patient stories stay put. But what about those trickier scenarios? Like, say a patient confides in you about a symptom they haven't even told the chiropractor. You're that friendly face. They might feel more comfortable opening up.
It's a tough one because you want to be supportive, but you also have to be ethical. You can't offer diagnoses or medical advice. It's just not in your scope of practice.
You got to stay in your lane, something RoleCatcher emphasizes a lot. So what's the move then? How do you balance empathy without overstepping?
You gently guide them back to the chiropractor.
Mhm.
Say something like, hey, that's definitely something to discuss with Dr. Name. Let me make a note of it for your next appointment.
You're like a patient advocate, but within those professional lines. What about situations where you might have to demonstrate an exercise or assist with a therapy? Where's the line there between helping and crossing over?
That's where knowing your role and communicating clearly are so important. RoleCatcher is really big on this. Everything you do should be under the chiropractor's guidance, under their supervision. You're like the trusty sidekick.
Right. Not going rogue and inventing new stretches, but following the lead and keeping those patients safe. Now, let's talk about when things don't go exactly as planned. We live in a world of instant gratification, but chiropractic care, like a lot of wellness journeys, it takes time.
It does, and that's where those communication skills are so crucial again. Setting realistic expectations from day one is so important.
Because not everyone wants to hear their aches and pains will take a while to address. So how do you deliver that message while still being positive?
It's all about emphasizing consistency and patience. You can say healing takes time, but we're in this together. We're here to support you every step of the way. And celebrating those small wins, did their range of motion improve a little? That's huge.
You're their cheerleader, reminding them progress isn't always a straight line, but it's always worth celebrating. But let's be honest, sometimes you'll have patients who, even with everyone's best effort, they're just not seeing results. Or maybe they're just having a bad day.
Those are the days that test your empathy muscles.
Right, it's like, how's your day? But with the potential side of back pain and frustration.
Totally. Active listening is so important. Sometimes just letting the patient vent can make all the difference. And knowing when to loop in the chiropractor, remember, you're part of a team.
You're the first responder, assessing and calling for backup when needed. Speaking of backup, RoleCatcher talks a lot about teamwork. It's easy to get stuck in your own tasks and forget that you're part of something bigger.
It's so true. Being a chiropractic assistant, it's not a solo mission. Clear communication, respect, a willingness to help out, those are the things that make a team work.
A well-oiled, spine-aligning machine, everyone working together, it creates this great energy in the whole practice. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something we all love: money. We know the starting salary range, but how can a chiropractic assistant increase those numbers over time?
Remember those certifications RoleCatcher mentioned? Things like getting CPR certified, becoming a certified medical assistant, or a medical office assistant. Those can really boost your resume.
They're like those badges you earn. Each one shows employers you're serious about growing professionally and that you've got those extra skills.
Yes. And those certifications often mean a little salary bump, too. It shows you're going above and beyond.
It's like leveling up in a video game, but instead of superpowers, you get marketable skills. And in healthcare, things change so fast, staying updated is so important. What are some other ways to stay ahead of the curve?
Attending conferences and workshops is great, and even just staying informed about the latest chiropractic research. Those show that you're passionate and want to provide the best possible care.
It's like you're always a student, which keeps things interesting. And your patients benefit from all that knowledge. Okay, we've talked about RoleCatcher's resume tips, but what about interviews? Any advice on wowing potential employers?
Preparation is key. RoleCatcher has this awesome collection of practice interview questions, and they even provide expert approaches and sample answers.
It's like having a cheat sheet for job interviews, but, the ethical kind.
Exactly. And they even offer AI-powered feedback on video rehearsals for those who like to practice in front of the camera. It's amazing.
That's so cool. It's like having a coach analyze your every move, but instead of a tennis swing, it's your interview game face.
You got it. But even with all the preparation in the world, interviews can still be nerve-wracking. Just take a deep breath, be yourself, and let your passion for chiropractic care shine through. That's what truly connects with people.
It's like dating, but for jobs. Put your best foot forward, but be authentic. Now, before we move on to our last bit on chiropractic assistants, let's talk about some personal qualities that can make all the difference. We've talked skills, but what about those it factors?
You mean those soft skills that make you someone people want to be around, both colleagues and patients? A positive attitude, that goes such a long way, even on crazy days.
It's like bringing the sunshine into the clinic, even when it's gloomy outside. But what about when things get tough? A patient's upset, a procedure isn't going as planned, that kind of thing.
That's when you need those stress management skills. Deep breaths, knowing when to take a break. Chiropractic care can be physically and emotionally demanding.
So finding your inner zen is important, even if it's just for a few minutes, so you can come back refreshed and ready to go. And speaking of being ready, let's talk about taking initiative.
Oh, that's a big one. A chiropractic assistant who's proactive, who anticipates what's needed, who goes above and beyond those are the ones that stand out.
So you're not just checking boxes, you're thinking ahead, being resourceful, basically the dream assistant every chiropractor wishes for.
Exactly. And that proactive attitude often comes from genuinely caring about health and wellness.
You're not just there for the paycheck, you want to help people feel their best, and it shows.
Well said. And that energy, it's contagious, not just for your patients, but for your colleagues too. It creates a really positive atmosphere.
A ripple effect of good vibes. Okay, we've talked about the daily work, ethical considerations, possible career paths, but before we wrap up our chiropractic assistant deep dive, we've got to talk money. Let's get into those salary details everyone's wondering about. We're back for the final part of our chiropractic assistant deep dive. Before the break, we were getting into those juicy salary details, so give it to me straight. What kind of numbers are we talking?
Just like most careers, experience is a biggie. The more you have, the more you can potentially earn. But, and here's the cool part, even if you're just starting out, you can still give those numbers a nice little boost. Remember those specializations we talked about?
Right, becoming a certified chiropractic assistant, mastering a specific technique, those kinds of things, like adding a gold star to your resume. But does it actually mean more money in your pocket?
It really can. Think about it. If you've got skills that are in high demand, you're kind of a big deal. If a chiropractor is specifically looking for someone who, say, specializes in prenatal care, and you're the only one around with that kind of experience, well, you've got some leverage.
So it's all about finding your niche and then owning it. I like it. But beyond certifications and things like that, are there other salary secrets aspiring chiropractic assistants need to know about?
Location, location, location. It's like real estate. Where you are can seriously impact how much you earn. Bigger cities often mean bigger paychecks, but they also mean a higher cost of living. You got to find that balance.
It's true. A chiropractic assistant in, say, San Francisco is probably making more than one in a smaller town in, I don't know, Ohio. But then again, those California rent prices, it's all a trade-off. Anything else to keep in mind, financially speaking?
Definitely. Benefits can be really different depending on the practice. Some places might offer you the whole shebang, health insurance, paid time off, a retirement plan, the works. Others might be a little more basic.
So it's not just about the number on the paycheck, it's about the whole picture. Those extras add up. Speaking of things that add up, let's talk about the stuff they don't always tell you about the job. We touched on the physical demands, but what about the emotional side of things?
It's something RoleCatcher talks about, and it's so important. Working in healthcare especially, a hands-on field like chiropractic care, it can be emotionally taxing. You're going to encounter patients who are hurting, frustrated, maybe even a little scared.
You're not just adjusting spines, you're holding space for their feelings too. It takes a certain type of person.
It really does. And that's why taking care of yourself is absolutely crucial in this line of work. You have to find those healthy ways to de-stress, process your emotions, and recharge those batteries so you can show up for your patients as your best self.
Love that. Taking care of yourself so you can care for others. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? You've got to fill your own cup first. Now, as we wrap up our chiropractic assistant adventure, I want to leave our listeners with this. What lights you up when it comes to healthcare?
Think about, what kind of mark do you want to make? How does a job like this fit in with what you believe in?
It's all about finding that sweet spot where your skills and interests and values all come together. And hey, maybe this deep dive has sparked something in you. Maybe you're feeling that curiosity, that excitement to make a difference. And maybe, just maybe, this is the path that leads you to an amazing and fulfilling career as a chiropractic assistant. Thanks for joining us.